have been undoubtedly dominated by COVID-19 pandemic, which has thus far resulted in the death of more than 4 million people worldwide. The pandemic represents one of the most profound challenges to socio-economic development in all countries. There is no doubt that it has brought humanitarian, social, and economic impact in the short to long term and has set back achievement of the 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development Goals. There are increasingly evident effects of climate change, including record-breaking wildfires, flooding, and more extreme temperatures. The latest IPCC report provides new estimates of the chances of crossing the global warming level of 1.5 degrees in the next decade. Unless there are immediate, rapid, and large-scale reductions in the greenhouse gas emissions, limiting warming to near 1.5 degrees will be beyond reach. The issues are increasingly eluding the control of individual national governments. Global solidarity and concerted international cooperation is therefore very essential. For us and other small island developing states, especially, our biggest threats are global, most notably climate change, the management of our oceans, and of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, our solutions too must be global. To recover better together, we need to take comprehensive action at the global, regional, and national levels. Effective and sustainable support is now needed more than ever to regain momentum of international cooperation to advancing the 2030 Agenda while building inclusive economies and resilient societies. The Pacific leaders during the recent 51st Pacific Leaders Forum meeting also acknowledged the challenges that threatens the strength and solidarity of the Forum family and calls on leaders to be redirected to the Pacific way of dialogue to address these challenges. This includes the COVID-19 pandemic, economic challenges, the intensifying climate crisis facing Pacific Islands countries, and intensifying of geopolitical competition in the Pacific region. In Vanuatu, Mr. President, in all countries, the economic shock caused by the pandemic has exposed structured weaknesses, notably in health, social protection systems. For Vanuatu, a recently graduated from least developed country, the challenges was compounded by a natural disaster, COVID-19 pandemic, followed by Category 5 tropical cyclone Harold, which caused extensive devastation in April 2020, has meant detrimental impact on the economy, society, and communities at the unprecedented level. The path to recovery will be a challenging one to navigate if the pandemic is not contained soon. Like many other small Pacific Island countries, Vanuatu has managed to escape the COVID-19 transmission. Swift lockdown on international borders provided a window to prepare on the health side, but these containment measures have crippled the economy. If the coronavirus did enter Vanuatu, the health focus would immediately need to swing from prevention and preparedness to treatment and containment. An internal lockdown would heavily impact private and domestic sector participation in recovery process and further stress to the economy and deepening the impact on community coping mechanisms. For Vanuatu, rapid closure of international borders in March 2020 meant transitioning from a health threat to an economic emergency. Many businesses, especially those resilient on tourism, effectively ground to halt. No tourist arrival and a reduced resilient community immediately impacted the hospitality and construction sectors, putting at least 8,000 formal jobs in jeopardy and affecting the livelihoods of tens of thousands of people in the informal sector. For more than 1,000 licensed handicraft artisans, their incomes plummet into near zero. Mr. President, as a small island nation, we know too well the importance of global solidarity. We know from experience that we are always better off when we are working together rather than in isolation. It was in this spirit that we came together as a nation in July to celebrate our 45th anniversary of independence. We celebrated our achievements with strong determination, resilience, and hope for a better future, despite the catastrophe that has been unleashed by the pandemic and natural disasters. We recommit ourselves as a nation to work towards economic self-reliance with a major focus on the productive sector. In responding to the COVID-19 and DC Harold, the Vanuatu government has put together policies and strategies aligned to the National Sustainable Development Plan to address the impact of the compounded disaster. We react swiftly, imposing international lockdown, followed by an extended period of national state of emergency from March 2020 to date. As an immediate measure to contain the spread of the virus, we developed a national recovery strategy that is aimed at supporting communities impacted by DC Harold and COVID-19, providing that framework to recover, rebuild, emerge stronger and more resilient. The strategy responds to social, economic, and environmental impacts of the compounded disaster. It re-establishes and strengthens the public service to effectively lead and implement recovery in the health and education, support and protect people with disabilities and other vulnerable groups, in repairing and upgrading infrastructure and strengthening environmental service and resilience. We commend the tremendous support of our development partners to the implementation of this strategy, especially in a difficult time where the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic have imposed great threat to the implementation progress of the country's National Sustainable Development Plan. The Vanuatu government also introduced the COVID-19 stimulus package with a focus on preserving jobs, providing government subsidies and commodity support grant, tuition fee exemption, grants for employment stabilization, stabilizing businesses and trade activities, tax relief, and enabling remittances through labor mobility programs. Recognizing our development partner support, the government has spent over 4 billion FATU for this program and may require further prudent fiscal measures to sustain the economy if the COVID-19